My consulting firm partner told the Department of Defense contracting officer that new fathers can't handle high-pressure projects when he transferred our $1.6 million federal contract to his personal consulting firm during my paternity leave. My name is Benjamin Carter, 39 years old, management consultant with 13 years of federal contracting experience, specializing in Defense Department project management and strategic planning initiatives. I had built Carter & Reynolds Federal Solutions through rigorous compliance protocols and comprehensive documentation systems that ensured optimal performance on sensitive government contracts requiring security clearances and systematic project oversight. When David Reynolds explained through certified mail that my paternity leave had created delivery capability concerns requiring immediate contract transfer to maintain federal compliance standards, I simply replied, "I understand the importance of ensuring uninterrupted service delivery for our government clients." What Reynolds didn't realize was that my systematic approach to federal contracting included comprehensive partnership documentation and automated project management systems that would expose his unauthorized contract manipulation while I was caring for my newborn daughter during legitimate family medical leave. The notification arrived via certified mail on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks into my paternity leave, following the birth of my daughter Emma. Reynolds had sent official documents explaining that the Department of Defense Logistics Modernization contract had been transferred to Reynolds Consulting Solutions to ensure continuity of service delivery. "Benjamin, your paternity leave created scheduling conflicts that compromised our ability to meet critical project milestones," Reynolds wrote in his characteristically corporate tone. The contracting officer expressed concerns about project leadership availability during this sensitive implementation phase. I reviewed the documentation while caring for Emma, noting the suspicious timing and Reynolds' detailed explanations about capability assessments and delivery assurance procedures. "David, can you provide the specific capability evaluation criteria that necessitated immediate contract transfer?" I responded through secure email from my home office. Reynolds' reply arrived 8 hours later with explanations that seemed designed to avoid technical specifics about federal procurement requirements. "Benjamin, the Department of Defense conducted comprehensive capability assessments and determined that single-owner consulting arrangements provide optimal project management consistency for sensitive logistics modernization initiatives." The response raised immediate concerns. Reynolds was discussing federal contract transfers that required specific authorization procedures and partnership notification protocols that hadn't been followed. Which specific federal procurement regulations governed the capability assessment and transfer authorization? I asked during our scheduled secure conference call. Reynolds appeared uncomfortable during the encrypted video connection, avoiding direct responses while reviewing printed contract documentation. "Benjamin, your paternity leave prevented direct participation in capability evaluation procedures. The contracting officer handled all federal compliance requirements according to standard procurement protocols. I maintained professional courtesy while internally noting Reynolds' evasive language about specific regulatory procedures and his reluctance to discuss partnership agreement compliance. I understand. What timeline did the Department of Defense establish for project transition and security clearance transfer?" Reynolds gathered his paperwork with visible irritation. "Benjamin, your family commitments prevent hands-on involvement in sensitive federal projects. I've managed all compliance documentation and transition requirements to ensure contract performance continuity." I thanked Reynolds for handling federal compliance during my paternity leave and ended the call. Then I immediately contacted my government contracts attorney about partnership violations and federal procurement regulations. The federal contracts legal specialist, Maria Rodriguez, reviewed my preliminary concerns and immediately recognized potential violations of both partnership agreements and federal procurement statutes. "Benjamin, if your partner transferred federal contracts without proper authorization, he may have violated procurement regulations in addition to partnership agreement terms," Rodriguez explained. "The documentation I maintained through federal compliance protocols included comprehensive records of every contract development phase, security clearance requirements, and partnership authorization procedures for government work." "Maria, Our federal contracts require joint partnership authorization for any transfers or modifications, I explained. These agreements include specific security clearance and capability maintenance requirements. The federal security protocols I had followed during contract development created detailed audit trails that tracked every project modification, authorization signature, and compliance verification requirement. Your federal documentation provides comprehensive evidence of partnership structure and contract authorization requirements, Rodriguez noted. We need to immediately verify whether proper procurement procedures were followed for contract transfer. The automated project management systems I had implemented tracked every contract communication with timestamps, participant authentication, and federal compliance markers that would expose unauthorized modifications. What I discovered during the first hour of analysis was sufficient evidence to request immediate legal intervention and federal procurement review. The project management logs showed that Reynolds had been systematically modifying contract communications during my paternity leave, attempting to remove my authorization signatures and partnership identifiers from federal contract documentation. Reynolds has been systematically altering federal contract documents to obscure joint partnership structure, I documented. His unauthorized modifications violate both partnership agreements and federal procurement regulations. The technical evidence revealed not just business partnership violations, but potential federal crimes involving unauthorized modification of government contracts and false representations to federal contracting officers. Rodriguez reviewed my preliminary evidence and immediately recommended comprehensive federal compliance review and potential criminal investigation. Benjamin, unauthorized transfer of federal contracts constitutes procurement fraud that warrants immediate investigation, she advised. Your systematic documentation provides comprehensive evidence for both civil and criminal proceedings. The security clearance documentation I maintained showed continuous active status throughout my paternity leave, contradicting Reynolds' claims about capability limitations and project leadership availability. My security clearances remained active and current throughout paternity leave, I documented. Reynolds' capability claims were false representations to federal contracting officers. Reynolds' confidence about contract transfer authorization was about to encounter federal procurement oversight and comprehensive evidence that would expose every aspect of his unauthorized contract manipulation. Have you ever discovered that someone exploited your family medical leave to steal federal contracts while making false representations to government agencies? Federal procurement regulations include comprehensive protection for legitimate business partnerships and systematic documentation requirements that prevent unauthorized contract manipulation. My 13-year career in federal contracting had been built on the foundation of rigorous compliance protocols and systematic project management that ensured optimal performance on sensitive government contracts while maintaining the security clearances and documentation standards required for Defense Department work. The expertise I had developed in federal procurement regulations and project delivery methodologies represented years of specialized training in government contracting procedures that exceeded civilian consulting capabilities. I had established my federal contracting career in 2011 as a junior consultant with a regional government services firm where I specialized in Defense Department logistics and strategic planning projects that required comprehensive security clearance verification and systematic compliance oversight. Benjamin's expertise in federal procurement compliance and project management provides capabilities that exceed standard consulting industry practices, noted performance evaluation from Pentagon Logistics Director, Colonel Sarah Mitchell. The federal contracting training I had received included comprehensive instruction in procurement regulations, security classification procedures, and partnership documentation requirements that were essential for maintaining government contract eligibility while supporting legitimate business development. Carter's systematic approach to federal compliance and project documentation ensures adherence to procurement regulations while enabling optimal contract performance, explained classified project supervisor Major Robert Chen. The transition to independent federal consulting in 2018 had required careful coordination between federal procurement attorneys and security clearance specialists to ensure proper handling of classified contract requirements and legitimate commercial applications. David Reynolds had approached me in 2019 when I was expanding my federal consulting capabilities beyond my individual capacity to serve the growing number of Defense Department contracts requiring specialized project management and strategic planning expertise. David's business development experience and federal contracting background will complement your technical expertise in Defense Department projects, I had reasoned when establishing our partnership agreement. Reynolds brought solid project management skills and claimed experience in federal business development, though his attitudes toward compliance protocols and documentation requirements had always created tension within my systematic approach to procurement oversight. Benjamin, your federal documentation requirements exceed standard government contracting practices, Reynolds had complained regularly. Efficient project delivery requires streamlined compliance rather than excessive administrative protocols. I had consistently explained that comprehensive documentation was essential for both security compliance and partnership protection in the heavily regulated federal contracting environment. David, federal contracts require detailed documentation for security clearance verification and procurement compliance, I would respond. Systematic protocols protect both our partnership and our government clients from regulatory violations. But Reynolds viewed federal-grade documentation as bureaucratic obstacles rather than essential protection for both contractors and agencies in complex government procurement relationships. Excessive documentation prevents rapid project delivery and competitive positioning, Reynolds had argued during business development planning meetings. The Department of Defense contract that had precipitated Reynolds' theft scheme represented our most significant federal engagement, requiring comprehensive logistics modernization planning for military supply chain optimization across multiple defense installations. Our DoD logistics contract provides strategic planning services that enhance military readiness through systematic supply chain improvements, I had documented during contract development planning. The $1.6 million contract value reflected the specialized nature of defense logistics consulting and the security clearance requirements that limited competition to qualified federal contractors with proven compliance capabilities. Carter and Reynolds Federal Solutions delivers advanced logistics planning that exceeds standard consulting through specialized Defense Department expertise, industry analyst Patricia Newman had noted. But the most valuable component was the ongoing relationship with federal contracting officers and Defense Department clients who valued our systematic approach to project delivery and compliance management. The federal contracting relationships represent sustainable competitive advantages that justify premium consulting fees, I had explained to Reynolds during partnership development. Reynolds had gradually been expressing frustration with what he characterized as constraints imposed by my compliance focus and systematic documentation requirements. Benjamin, your compliance protocols limit our ability to pursue aggressive federal contract expansion, Reynolds had complained during quarterly business reviews. I had consistently explained that federal compliance and security clearance maintenance were non-negotiable aspects of our partnership that actually enhanced our credibility with Defense Department clients. David, our compliance capabilities and security clearances provide market access that civilian consultants cannot match, I would respond. But Reynolds viewed my compliance focus as obstacles to rapid business growth rather than strategic advantages that differentiated our federal consulting practice from civilian competitors. Federal documentation requirements conflict with competitive project delivery timelines, Reynolds had argued. The partnership agreement we had established included specific provisions for managing family commitments and personal leave while protecting both partners' interests in federal contracts and business development. Our partnership structure accommodates family obligations while ensuring continued federal contract performance, I had documented during initial legal consultations. The federal procurement protections I had insisted upon included comprehensive documentation of joint partnership structure and required procedures for any contract modifications or transfers involving government work. All federal contracts require joint partner authorization and procurement officer notification before any modifications or transfers, our partnership agreement specified. Reynolds had apparently been studying these federal procurement provisions while planning to circumvent them during my paternity leave, when I would be unavailable to provide direct oversight. Reynolds's questions about contract transfer procedures and federal authorization requirements suggest preparation for unauthorized federal contract activities I had noted in compliance documentation. The systematic documentation I maintained through federal protocols was providing comprehensive evidence that would expose Reynolds's unauthorized claims while protecting both government interests and my personal business rights. The federal contracting background that informed our partnership structure created legal complexities that Reynolds had apparently underestimated when planning his unauthorized contract transfer negotiations. Federal procurement regulations include specific partnership protection provisions that prevent unauthorized contract manipulation I had established during partnership legal planning. The security clearance requirements that governed our federal work created additional oversight mechanisms that would detect Reynolds's unauthorized activities and false representations to government contracting officers. Active security clearances require continuous verification and reporting that creates comprehensive audit trails. I documented. The paternity leave that had precipitated Reynolds's theft attempt was protected under federal family medical leave regulations that prohibited business retaliation or contract manipulation based on legitimate family obligations. Federal contractors cannot lose contract access due to family medical leave protected under federal employment regulations, I noted. Reynolds's systematic exploitation of my paternity leave was violating both partnership agreements and federal procurement protections that were specifically designed to prevent this type of business manipulation during family medical circumstances. Have you ever maintained federal compliance documentation that became essential for protecting partnership rights when civilian partners attempted unauthorized government contract manipulation? Defense-grade documentation protocols provide comprehensive protection that exceeds civilian legal safeguards while ensuring government contract integrity. The comprehensive investigation I conducted during my remaining weeks of paternity leave revealed that Reynolds's contract transfer wasn't a legitimate capability assessment response, but a carefully planned scheme to exploit my family medical leave for systematic theft of federal contracts while making false representations to government contracting officers about my availability and partnership structure. My forensic analysis of project management systems and federal contract documentation showed that Reynolds had been systematically studying federal procurement regulations and partnership authorization requirements to identify optimal timing for unauthorized contract claims while I was unavailable to provide direct oversight or challenge his fraudulent representations. Reynolds's modification patterns in federal contract communications accelerated during my paternity leave preparation period. I documented through secure federal channels. His systematic document alterations suggest premeditated contract theft rather than routine compliance activities. The sophistication of Reynolds's scheme included coordination with Department of Defense contracting officers to misrepresent our partnership structure and my availability while I was caring for my newborn daughter during legitimate family medical leave. Reynolds provided false representations to federal contracting officers about partnership dissolution and capability limitations, I noted in my federal compliance incident report. His systematic deception enabled unauthorized transfer of government contracts, but Reynolds had made critical errors that would expose his systematic fraud and create overwhelming evidence for both federal procurement investigation and criminal prosecution. The automated project management systems I had implemented included mandatory federal compliance tracking and partnership verification protocols that Reynolds could not circumvent without creating obvious evidence of unauthorized access and document manipulation. Reynolds's attempts to remove my partnership identifiers from federal contract documents created comprehensive audit trails of unauthorized modification I compiled. The technical evidence proves systematic contract theft rather than legitimate business development. The government contracts attorney Maria Rodriguez reviewed my expanded evidence and immediately recognized the systematic nature of Reynolds's federal procurement violations and potential criminal liability. Benjamin, Reynolds's activities show classic patterns of federal contract fraud involving unauthorized transfer and false representations to government agencies, Rodriguez observed. The documented evidence proves deliberate violation of procurement statutes and partnership agreements. The technical methods Reynolds had used to facilitate his contract theft included creating false partnership dissolution documentation and submitting fraudulent capability assessments that claimed exclusive ownership of joint intellectual property and project methodologies. Reynolds fabricated partnership termination documents and submitted false capability statements to support unauthorized contract transfer, I documented. His systematic falsification of federal procurement documentation constitutes fraud in addition to partnership violations. The federal contracting officer communications that Reynolds had provided to justify contract transfer included technical specifications that revealed his misrepresentation of our joint project development and shared security clearance capabilities. Reynolds's capability transfer documents contained false claims about exclusive ownership of joint project methodologies, I noted. His unauthorized appropriation of shared intellectual property constituted federal procurement fraud. Most concerning was Reynolds's systematic access to my federal security clearance files and Pentagon assignment documentation that he had been exploiting to understand the full scope of capabilities he was attempting to claim exclusively. Reynolds accessed confidential security clearance records to identify valuable capabilities for unauthorized federal contract claims, I documented. His exploitation of classified access information constitutes federal security violations. The timeline analysis revealed that Reynolds's contract transfer negotiations had begun immediately after my paternity leave notification, suggesting systematic exploitation of my family medical leave rather than legitimate capability concerns. Reynolds initiated federal contract transfer discussions within days of my paternity leave notification, I calculated. His timing proves systematic planning to exploit family medical leave rather than legitimate business restructuring. Rodriguez recommended immediate federal procurement investigation and comprehensive evidence preservation to prevent Reynolds from destroying records or completing additional unauthorized contract transfers. Benjamin, we need immediate federal intervention to prevent additional procurement violations and protect government contract integrity, Rodriguez advised. Your documentation provides comprehensive evidence for federal investigation. The Defense Contract Audit Agency was notified about potential unauthorized transfer of classified defense contracts involving false representations to federal contracting officers and systematic partnership fraud. Reynolds's activities may constitute federal contract fraud that threatens government procurement integrity, DCAA investigator Michael Torres explained during secure communication. The Department of Defense Inspector General's office initiated parallel investigation of potential procurement violations involving unauthorized commercial appropriation of defense contracts requiring joint partnership authorization. Reynolds's contract transfer involved government work that requires explicit federal approval for partnership modifications, DoD investigator Jennifer Walsh reported. The evidence compilation I was providing included comprehensive documentation of Reynolds's systematic contract theft, federal compliance violations, and fraudulent representations to government agencies. Reynolds's documented activities violate federal procurement statutes, partnership protection laws, and security clearance regulations, I noted in my formal complaint. The federal contracting officer, who had authorized the contract transfer, was beginning to discover fundamental problems with Reynolds's capability claims and the federal authorization procedures that had been circumvented. The contracting officer was systematically deceived about partnership structure and capability ownership. Federal procurement analyst Robert Kim reported to investigators. The systematic documentation I had maintained through federal protocols was providing overwhelming evidence that would expose Reynolds's fraud while ensuring comprehensive protection for both government procurement integrity and personal business rights. Your federal compliance documentation creates unbreakable evidence of partnership structure and contract authorization requirements, Rodriguez observed. The Department of Defense small business partnership requirements that governed our contract included specific protections against unauthorized ownership transfers that Reynolds had systematically violated through false capability claims. Reynolds's contract transfer violated federal small business partnership protections, I documented. His fraudulent ownership claims constitute systematic violation of government contracting regulations. The security clearance verification procedures that I had maintained throughout paternity leave provided irrefutable evidence that Reynolds's capability claims were false representations designed to facilitate unauthorized contract theft. My active security clearances during paternity leave contradict Reynolds's claims about capability limitations, I compiled. His false representations to federal agencies constitute criminal fraud. Reynolds's confidence about federal contract transfer was about to encounter Department of Defense investigation and systematic evidence that would expose every aspect of his unauthorized procurement manipulation while ensuring appropriate criminal accountability. The comprehensive evidence was revealing not just partnership violations, but systematic federal crimes that warranted maximum government enforcement and prosecution under procurement fraud statutes. Have you ever discovered that federal compliance protocols provided comprehensive protection against systematic contract theft by business partners making false representations to government agencies? Defense-grade documentation sometimes becomes essential for exposing sophisticated procurement fraud that threatens both personal rights and government contract integrity. The strategic, legal, and federal response that Rodriguez and the government oversight team developed required careful coordination between federal procurement investigation, criminal referral procedures, and partnership dispute resolution to maximize contract recovery while ensuring appropriate prosecution for Reynolds's systematic procurement violations and unauthorized federal contract manipulation. Benjamin Reynolds's unauthorized transfer of federal contracts creates exposure under procurement fraud statutes, federal partnership protection laws, and security clearance violation regulations, Rodriguez explained during our comprehensive strategy session. The evidence you've compiled supports simultaneous federal investigation and criminal prosecution. The federal procurement investigation strategy focused on Reynolds's violations of contract transfer procedures and unauthorized representations to government contracting officers that warranted immediate intervention and contract recovery enforcement. Your partnership agreement includes specific federal procurement protections requiring government approval before any contract modifications, Rodriguez noted. Reynolds's unauthorized transfer negotiations violate explicit constitutional safeguards for federal contracting partnerships, but the most immediate priority was preventing Reynolds from completing additional unauthorized contract transfers while federal investigators built comprehensive cases for both procurement violations and criminal prosecution. We need emergency federal intervention to prevent Reynolds from transferring additional government contracts while investigators examine the full scope of his procurement violations, Rodriguez recommended. The federal criminal referral documentation I was preparing included comprehensive evidence of Reynolds' systematic contract theft, procurement fraud, and false representations that warranted prosecution under federal fraud and conspiracy statutes. Reynolds' activities constitute multiple federal violations, including procurement fraud, false statements to government agencies, and conspiracy to defraud defense contracts, Rodriguez explained. Meanwhile, I was coordinating with Pentagon security officers to conduct comprehensive damage assessment and contract recovery procedures while maintaining operational security for ongoing Defense Department projects. Reynolds' contract theft may have compromised classified defense projects that support current military operations, I noted through secure channels. The security implications extend beyond commercial partnership disputes to active defense capabilities. The Defense Contract Audit Agency investigation that began immediately after my complaint included comprehensive examination of Reynolds' access to classified information and potential compromise of federal contract security through unauthorized commercial appropriation. Reynolds' unauthorized contract transfer may have exposed classified defense methodologies to unauthorized commercial entities, DCAA investigator Torres reported. The technical analysis I was conducting revealed that Reynolds' fraudulent transfer documentation had exposed detailed specifications of classified project management methods that supported active Defense Department logistics operations. Reynolds's capability transfer documents contain methodology specifications that reveal classified defense logistics protocols, I documented. His unauthorized disclosure creates operational security risks for deployed military units. The FBI federal contract fraud investigation was expanding to include Reynolds's false representations to government agencies and his potential conspiracy to defraud Defense Department contracting processes. Reynolds's fraudulent capability claims and false partnership dissolution documentation may constitute conspiracy to defraud federal procurement systems, FBI agent Patricia Chambers noted. The Department of Justice Public Integrity Section was investigating potential violations of federal contracting ethics regulations involving systematic false statements to government officials and unauthorized appropriation of federal business relationships. Reynolds's false representations to contracting officers may violate federal public corruption statutes governing contractor relationships with government agencies, DOJ investigator Sarah Davis reported. The comprehensive evidence compilation was supporting federal charges that could result in 15 to 20 years in prison, plus complete forfeiture of unauthorized contracts and enhanced penalties for procurement fraud violations. Reynolds's documented activities support federal charges under the False Claims Act, Major Fraud Act, and conspiracy statutes, federal prosecutor Jennifer Martinez explained. The international implications were also significant, as Reynolds's unauthorized contract transfer could affect NATO defense logistics protocols and allied military supply chain coordination systems. Reynolds's exposed methodologies support classified NATO logistics networks, Pentagon security analyst Robert Wilson noted. His unauthorized commercial transfer creates security risks for international defense cooperation. The federal contracting officer's recognition of procurement violations was creating immediate pressure for contract reversal and comprehensive federal oversight of Reynolds's consulting activities. The contracting officer is voluntarily reversing unauthorized contract transfer after discovering procurement regulation violations, federal procurement specialist reported to investigators. The contract recovery process was identifying additional federal work that Reynolds had attempted to transfer without authorization, including classified project management tools and security protocols. Reynolds's transfer package included classified project management software and security protocols that exceed the scope of commercially approved methodologies, I documented. But the most significant development was the Pentagon's recognition that my systematic documentation had prevented potential compromise of active defense systems while enabling comprehensive federal investigation. Carter's federal compliance protocols prevented significant security compromise while providing comprehensive evidence for federal prosecution, Pentagon Security Director Colonel Mitchell noted. The coordinated federal response was ensuring that Reynolds's contract theft would result in both complete contract recovery and maximum criminal accountability, while protecting ongoing defense operations and federal procurement integrity. Multiple agency coordination ensures comprehensive contract recovery while preventing additional unauthorized federal procurement manipulation, Rodriguez observed. Reynolds's systematic exploitation of my paternity leave was about to encounter coordinated federal enforcement that would expose the full scope of his crimes while ensuring appropriate protection for both personal partnership rights and government procurement systems. The evidence I had compiled through federal protocols was enabling government agencies to build comprehensive cases that addressed both individual fraud and broader threats to defense contracting capabilities and national security infrastructure. Have you ever required coordination between federal procurement oversight and criminal investigation agencies to address systematic contract theft that threatened both personal business rights and government security? Sometimes federal documentation protocols become essential for protecting both individual interests and broader defense procurement integrity. The coordinated federal investigation that began executing 6 weeks after my initial procurement complaint created immediate disruption to Reynolds's contract operations while exposing the systematic nature of his federal fraud to multiple government agencies, defense contractors, and security oversight officials who had been unaware of his unauthorized appropriation of classified defense contracts. The emergency contract suspension that the Department of Defense implemented after reviewing my comprehensive evidence immediately prevented Reynolds from continuing unauthorized federal work while securing government protection from additional procurement fraud. Mr. Reynolds is subject to immediate federal contract suspension pending resolution of systematic procurement violations, Defense Contract Management Agency Director Colonel Sarah Wilson announced. His documented fraud creates immediate national security concerns that require comprehensive federal intervention. Reynolds' response to the federal contract suspension revealed his growing panic as he realized that his contract theft had triggered multiple government investigations and potential prosecution under federal fraud statutes rather than the simple business restructuring he had anticipated. Reynolds' emergency legal motions show desperation about suspended federal operations and recognition that his contract manipulation constitutes federal crimes, Rodriguez observed. His legal strategy indicates understanding that criminal prosecution is inevitable. The federal criminal charges that prosecutors filed included systematic procurement fraud, false statements to government agencies, and conspiracy to defraud defense contracts that carried potential sentences exceeding 20 years in federal prison. Mr. Reynolds faces multiple felony charges, including procurement fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to defraud government agencies, Federal Prosecutor Martinez announced. His systematic contract manipulation constitutes serious federal crimes that threaten procurement integrity. The Department of Defense Inspector General investigation was revealing that Reynolds' contract theft extended beyond individual partnership disputes to systematic violation of federal small business protections and security clearance requirements. Reynolds' fraudulent capability claims violated federal small business partnership protections and security clearance verification procedures, IG Investigator Walsh noted. His systematic deception threatens government contracting program integrity. But the most damaging development was the Pentagon's damage assessment revealing that Reynolds' unauthorized contract transfer had potentially compromised classified defense logistics methods used by active military supply chain operations. Reynolds' exposed methodologies support classified logistics networks currently used by deployed military units, Pentagon Security Assessment Director Colonel Patricia Stevens reported. His unauthorized commercial transfer creates immediate operational security risks. The international security implications were expanding as NATO defense officials identified potential compromise of Allied logistics coordination protocols that relied on the classified methodologies Reynolds had attempted to transfer commercially. Reynolds' contract theft affects NATO classified logistics systems that support multinational defense operations, International Security Coordinator Jennifer Walsh reported. The FBI federal contract fraud investigation was revealing that Reynolds' procurement manipulation had attracted attention from foreign commercial entities seeking unauthorized access to U.S. defense contracting capabilities and classified project management methodologies. Reynolds' commercial negotiations created intelligence opportunities for foreign entities monitoring U.S. defense contract transfers, FBI agent Chambers reported. His unauthorized disclosure may have compromised classified capabilities to hostile commercial intelligence. The Defense Security Service investigation had identified additional security violations involving Reynolds' systematic access to classified project documentation during our partnership while planning unauthorized commercial appropriation. Reynolds maintained unauthorized access to classified project development documentation throughout the partnership period, DSS investigator Rodriguez noted. His systematic security violations extend beyond recent contract theft to include ongoing unauthorized access to defense methodologies. Reynolds' attempts to hire experienced federal fraud attorneys were complicated by security clearance revocation procedures and the classified nature of evidence that limited his legal team's access to case materials. Reynolds cannot access specialized legal representation due to security clearance suspension, while the classified evidence limits his attorney's ability to review prosecution materials, Federal Public Defender Michael Torres stated. The federal debarment investigation was proceeding parallel to criminal prosecution, with government officials recognizing that Reynolds's systematic fraud warranted permanent exclusion from federal contracting opportunities. Reynolds's documented procurement violations justify federal debarment that would permanently prohibit his participation in government contracts, Federal Acquisition Regulation Specialist Linda Thompson reported. But Reynolds's most serious error was attempting to characterize his contract theft as legitimate business restructuring, while providing false documentation to multiple government agencies about partnership dissolution and capability ownership. Reynolds's false statements to multiple federal agencies prove systematic intent to defraud government procurement systems, Prosecutor Martinez noted. His coordinated deception eliminates most defense strategies. The asset recovery process was identifying contract theft proceeds that Reynolds had transferred to personal consulting accounts while attempting to hide fraudulent revenue from potential restitution obligations. Reynolds transferred fraudulent contract revenue to personal business accounts and luxury consulting equipment, asset recovery specialist Thompson calculated. His systematic asset hiding proves consciousness of guilt. The cooperation that Reynolds's attorneys were attempting to negotiate with federal prosecutors was complicated by the national security implications and the systematic nature of his security violations. Reynolds's security clearance violations and classified information exposure limit cooperation options, Prosecutor Martinez noted. His federal crimes involve national security elements that require maximum accountability. But the most meaningful outcome for my federal contracting career was comprehensive validation of systematic compliance protocols and family medical leave protections that had prevented significant government contract compromise while enabling complete contract recovery. Carter's systematic federal documentation prevented major contract loss while providing comprehensive evidence for federal prosecution, Pentagon Contract Security Review Board Chairman Colonel Wilson noted. The professional recognition I was receiving through ethical federal compliance reporting exceeded any financial benefits from the original partnership while establishing my reputation as an expert in defense contract protection and procurement fraud prevention. Carter's ethical handling of federal contract violations demonstrates exactly the kind of professional integrity required for classified defense contracting, noted evaluation from Pentagon Procurement Director Colonel Mitchell. Reynolds's systematic contract theft during my paternity leave was about to result in comprehensive federal accountability, including permanent debarment, while validating federal compliance protocols and family medical leave protections as essential safeguards for defense contracting integrity. The coordinated federal response had transformed Reynolds's sophisticated contract manipulation into complete exposure and maximum prosecution while protecting both personal partnership rights and government procurement security systems. Have you ever seen systematic federal contract theft completely exposed through coordinated government enforcement that protected both individual contractor rights and national defense procurement capabilities? Sometimes federal compliance protocols provide comprehensive protection that exceeds civilian legal safeguards while ensuring appropriate criminal accountability for government contract fraud. The comprehensive resolution of Reynolds's federal contract fraud case occurred within 10 months of my initial procurement complaint, delivering complete contract recovery, enhanced security clearance status, and federal criminal accountability that exceeded initial expectations, while establishing new Defense Department protocols for protecting contractor partnerships from unauthorized federal contract manipulation. Reynolds's guilty plea on all federal charges included systematic procurement fraud, false statements to government agencies, conspiracy, and security violations that resulted in a 12-year federal prison sentence, plus permanent debarment from government contracting and complete forfeiture of stolen contract proceeds. Mr. Reynolds's systematic theft of federal contracts represents a serious violation of government procurement integrity and national security, Federal Judge Patricia Stevens stated during sentencing. His exploitation of paternity leave protections to steal defense contracts warrants maximum punishment under federal fraud guidelines. The criminal conviction required Reynolds to forfeit all personal assets, including his consulting firm, business equipment, and investment accounts that had been acquired using proceeds from systematic federal contract theft. Reynolds's asset forfeiture ensures complete victim recovery, plus enhanced penalties that reflect the national security implications of his contract theft, asset recovery specialist Thompson reported. The comprehensive recovery exceeds original theft amounts due to federal fraud penalties and security violation enhancements. But beyond financial recovery, Reynolds's prosecution created Department of Defense recognition of systematic partnership documentation as essential protection against unauthorized federal contract transfer by business partners exploiting family medical leave protections. Carter's federal compliance protocols provided the evidentiary foundation for the most successful defense contract theft prosecution in federal court history, Pentagon Procurement Director Colonel Mitchell noted. His systematic approach to partnership documentation should be adopted by all federal contractors working with classified defense projects. The professional opportunities that resulted from my ethical handling of Reynolds's federal violations exceeded anything our original partnership could have provided for defense contracting development and government recognition. Carter Federal Solutions, the independent defense consulting firm I established using contract recovery proceeds and enhanced security clearance status, was attracting Department of Defense clients who valued proven integrity and comprehensive federal compliance protocol adherence. Benjamin's exposure of systematic federal contract theft demonstrates exactly the kind of security integrity we need for classified defense consulting projects, noted client testimonial from Defense Logistics Agency Director Jennifer Adams. The federal consulting practice was generating annual revenue of $720,000 while providing professional satisfaction that focused on advanced defense applications rather than partnership management and federal fraud prevention oversight. Independent federal contracting with comprehensive compliance protocols allows complete control over classified project integrity and government client protection, I reflected during defense industry conferences. The former Pentagon colleagues who joined Carter Federal Solutions as senior consultants represented validation that my federal expertise and ethical standards created more value than Reynolds's unauthorized contract appropriation schemes. Benjamin's systematic approach to federal compliance and ethical contracting practices provide reliability and security clearance capabilities that justify premium defense consulting rates, explained Personnel Metrics, showing recruitment of 5 senior Defense Department specialists. The speaking opportunities at federal contracting conferences and procurement compliance seminars were generating additional revenue while establishing my reputation as an expert in defense contract protection and unauthorized transfer prevention. Carter's experience demonstrates how comprehensive federal documentation can expose and prevent systematic defense contract theft, observed conference organizer Robert Wilson. The Department of Defense had implemented enhanced partnership oversight recommendations based on Reynolds's contract theft case, creating new standards for preventing unauthorized commercial appropriation of classified defense contracts during family medical leave periods. Carter's compliance protocols have become model practices for defense contractors seeking to prevent contract theft while maintaining classified project capabilities, DoD Compliance Director Lisa Chen noted. Reynolds's complete professional destruction served as federal contracting industry warning about the consequences of systematic contract theft and the importance of ethical federal compliance during classified project development. The Reynolds prosecution sends clear messages throughout the defense contractor community about federal enforcement capabilities for contract theft and procurement violations, legal analyst Patricia Newman observed. But the most meaningful outcome was validation of federal compliance protocols and family medical leave protections as reliable safeguards against contract manipulation during paternity leave and other protected family circumstances. Reynolds's prosecution proves that comprehensive federal documentation and ethical defense contracting create sustainable competitive advantages, I observed during ethics workshops. The Pentagon recognition I received for procurement violation reporting and classified contract protection had generated consulting opportunities and strategic partnerships that exceeded the financial benefits of traditional business partnerships. Carter's ethical handling of contract theft demonstrates federal security integrity that attracts both government contracts and industry collaboration opportunities, defense industry consultant Sarah Davis noted. The enhanced security clearance status I had achieved through ethical reporting was providing access to advanced classified projects and consulting opportunities that reflected superior professional capabilities and verified government trust. Carter Federal Solutions' proven federal compliance capabilities and comprehensive classified project expertise provide access to the most advanced defense consulting opportunities, client testimonial showed. The comprehensive legal victory had demonstrated that federal compliance protocols and ethical reporting provided more reliable contract protection than business partnership agreements based on convenience rather than verified federal security standards. Professional competence in federal compliance protocols creates competitive advantages that transcend individual partnership arrangements, I noted during defense contractor seminars. Reynolds' systematic contract theft during my paternity leave had inadvertently created opportunities for enhanced federal contracting independence, Pentagon recognition, and meaningful defense work that exceeded anything our original partnership could have achieved. Sometimes the most systematic federal betrayal creates catalysts for independent success and enhanced compliance standards, I reflected during professional development workshops. The federal documentation methods that had exposed Reynolds' contract theft were being adopted by defense contractors while generating ongoing consultation revenue and Pentagon recognition for procurement fraud prevention expertise. Carter's federal protection protocols provide comprehensive security against unauthorized contract transfer while supporting legitimate defense development operations, noted licensing agreement with Defense Contractor Compliance Association. Reynolds' attempt to steal classified defense contracts while exploiting my family medical leave had ultimately created opportunities for enhanced federal contracting independence, Pentagon leadership recognition, and meaningful security work that exceeded anything traditional partnership arrangements could have provided. The systematic approach to federal compliance that had defeated Reynolds' theft scheme was providing sustainable competitive advantages that attracted the most advanced defense consulting projects available to veteran-owned security firms with proven government integrity. Have you ever discovered that federal compliance protocols could transform attempted contract theft into opportunities for enhanced defense contracting success and Pentagon recognition? Sometimes comprehensive government documentation becomes the foundation for independent success that exceeds traditional partnership benefits while serving national security interests. Standing in the secure conference facility of Carter Federal Solutions, 18 months after Reynolds' conviction and permanent federal debarment, I reflected on how his systematic theft of classified defense contracts during my paternity leave had inadvertently transformed my career from partnership management to industry leadership in federal compliance and defense contract security. The independent federal consulting firm had grown to generate $940,000 in annual revenue while serving Department of Defense clients who valued proven integrity and comprehensive federal compliance above traditional government contracting approaches. The 4,800 square foot SCIF certified facility accommodated classified project development capabilities and comprehensive federal compliance consultation services that supported both routine defense contractor projects and specialized classified consulting initiatives that had become my professional specialty through Pentagon recognition and enhanced security clearance status. Working with a federal contractor who has personally tested comprehensive procurement compliance provides confidence and security clearance reliability that eliminates concerns about unauthorized contract manipulation and federal fraud, noted Senior Project Manager Patricia Lynch, a former Defense Contract Management Agency specialist who had joined our team. The federal consulting practice I had established was generating substantially higher income than my original partnership arrangement while providing professional satisfaction that focused on advanced classified applications and national security protection rather than partnership management and contract theft prevention. Carter Federal Solutions' systematic approach to federal compliance and ethical defense contracting provides comprehensive protection that exceeds traditional government contractor security standards. Client testimonial from Pentagon Logistics Modernization Director Colonel Michael Torres noted, "The business expansion that had resulted from Reynolds's prosecution, combined with Pentagon recognition for procurement violation reporting, had created professional opportunities that exceeded anything achievable through traditional federal contracting partnerships with shared security vulnerabilities." Benjamin's transformation from theft victim to defense industry compliance leader demonstrates how systematic integrity and comprehensive federal documentation create lasting competitive advantages in the defense sector, Federal Contracting Quarterly observed. But the most significant achievement was Pentagon recognition that established me as the definitive expert in federal contract protection and systematic compliance documentation for defense contractors facing partnership vulnerabilities and procurement fraud risks. Carter's experience provides unique insights into preventing and detecting federal contract theft that threatens both individual contractor rights and broader defense procurement integrity, Defense Security Review noted. The Defense Contract Management Agency had requested my participation in developing enhanced federal compliance standards and contract protection protocols that would protect defense contractors from systematic contract manipulation and unauthorized commercial appropriation. Carter's federal documentation methods and contract theft detection expertise provide essential guidance for strengthening defense procurement oversight throughout the federal contracting community, DCMA Security Policy Committee Chair Colonel David Martinez explained. Annual speaking engagements at federal contracting conferences, defense procurement seminars, and professional compliance workshops were generating supplemental income of $135,000 while reinforcing my expertise in systematic federal documentation and ethical defense contracting. Carter's systematic approach to federal contract protection and procurement fraud prevention has become the industry standard for defense contractors working with sensitive classified applications, Defense Contractor Association President Jennifer Adams observed. Reynolds's 12-year federal prison sentence had concluded with complete contract forfeiture, permanent federal debarment, and ongoing restitution obligations that would continue throughout his supervised release period. Reynolds's systematic federal contract theft resulted in the most comprehensive defense procurement prosecution in federal court history, Prosecutor Martinez noted. His case demonstrates that unauthorized contract transfer carries severe criminal consequences that cannot be avoided through sophisticated commercial coordination schemes or false capability claims. But Reynolds' prosecution had also created enhanced protection for federal contracting industry integrity by establishing legal precedents that strengthened procurement fraud enforcement and professional partnership oversight capabilities. The Reynolds prosecution clarified federal enforcement capabilities for systematic contract theft and established deterrent effects throughout the defense contractor community, legal analyst Robert Kim observed. The federal compliance methodologies I had developed and refined through Reynolds's contract theft exposure were generating licensing revenue from defense contractors who needed proven protection frameworks while ensuring proper federal implementation and ethical oversight. Carter's federal protection protocols provide comprehensive security against unauthorized contract transfer while supporting legitimate defense development operations and optimal national security outcomes, noted licensing agreement with National Defense Industrial Security Network. The professional reputation I had built through ethical crisis management was attracting strategic consultation opportunities with major defense organizations who valued demonstrated integrity and systematic federal compliance expertise. Carter Federal Solutions' proven compliance standards and comprehensive federal documentation capabilities make them ideal partners for the most sensitive defense initiatives and contract protection programs, explained consulting agreement with Pentagon-based defense consortium. Looking back on Reynolds's systematic betrayal and attempted theft of classified defense contracts, I realized that his sophisticated federal fraud had inadvertently created opportunities for professional growth, Pentagon recognition, and defense contracting success that exceeded anything traditional federal partnerships could have provided. Sometimes the most comprehensive federal contract theft becomes the catalyst for professional development and Pentagon recognition that transforms entire career trajectories into defense industry leadership, I observed during federal excellence conferences. The systematic federal documentation that had exposed Reynolds's contract violations was serving as the foundation for expanded consultation services that helped other defense contractors prevent federal fraud while maintaining ethical contracting standards and comprehensive government compliance. Reynolds's theft attempt validated the commercial value of systematic federal protection while creating legal precedents that enhanced defense industry-wide contract security, I noted during professional development workshops. The comprehensive legal victory had demonstrated that federal compliance protocols and ethical reporting provided more reliable contract protection than partnership relationships based on convenience rather than verified federal security standards and clearance requirements. Professional competence in systematic federal compliance and ethical defense contracting creates sustainable competitive advantages that transcend individual partnership arrangements or commercial contract strategies, I explained during Pentagon compliance presentations. Reynolds's attempt to steal classified defense contracts while exploiting my paternity leave had ultimately strengthened my professional position while creating consultation opportunities and Pentagon recognition that established Carter Federal Solutions as the Southwest's leading advocate for ethical federal contracting and comprehensive defense contract protection. The people who attempt to exploit family medical leave protections through systematic federal contract theft sometimes end up creating opportunities for their victims to achieve greater success through validated compliance expertise and comprehensive Pentagon recognition, I reflected during defense industry leadership seminars. The experience had proven that professional competence in systematic federal documentation and ethical defense contracting could transform attempted contract theft into enhanced federal consulting success and Pentagon authority that exceeded original partnership compensation arrangements. Reynolds' systematic federal contract fraud had inadvertently provided the foundation for building Pentagon recognition, professional leadership, and defense contracting expansion that represented the most successful and meaningful period in my 13-year federal consulting career. Professional relationships built on systematic federal integrity and verified compliance standards prove more durable and valuable than partnerships based on convenient commercial arrangements or contract strategies that can be compromised through unauthorized transfer activities and procurement violations. The federal consulting firm that had emerged from Reynolds's attempted theft was generating higher revenue, enhanced Pentagon recognition, and more meaningful security relationships than anything traditional partnerships could have achieved. Have you discovered that federal compliance protocols and ethical defense contracting can transform attempted contract theft into opportunities for professional growth and Pentagon recognition? Sometimes the most sophisticated federal contract fraud becomes the foundation for building enhanced competitive advantages through validated compliance expertise and comprehensive defense industry authority. If this story of systematic federal documentation and defense contract protection resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button to Revenge Tales with Luke. Share your experiences with federal contract theft and compliance protection in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's facing similar challenges with systematic procurement fraud and partnership exploitation during family medical leave. See you in our next story.